So with that, I'd like to introduce Adam Whitman. Again, he is Senior Technical Support Engineer here at Automox. He has deep history in the security, network, and storage space. Adam has provided technical support and customer success for companies like SolidFire and NetApp and Hewlett-Packard, and we're happy to have him on the team. So with that, Adam, I'd like to hand that over to you.
Hey, thanks, Holly, for the introduction, and hey, everyone on the phone, and thanks for the introduction. I guess you guys know me pretty well at this point, and that was a great introduction, so thanks, Holly. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into it. Today we have a mixed audience, so we have a lot of current customers joining us to kind of hear some of the new features we're releasing in June. And also we have some future Automox customers as well that are joining us, kind of want to hear about the product. So I kind of make sure that, I introduce the product and, for people who have never heard of Automox, kind of give an introduction of what it is. So Automox is a cloud-based SaaS product that focuses on endpoint security patching for Windows, Mac, and Linux endpoints. So as long as the endpoint has an internet connection and meets some basic network configurations, then Automox can patch and manage the endpoint from wherever it's located. But we're so much more than a patching company. Part of our endpoint security strategy is to allow you to deploy software and manage endpoint configurations to ensure your IT infrastructure is meeting all of your security requirements. Okay, so today I want to kind of talk about some of the new features we're releasing in June, and these are things that we've been had in the bucket for a while, and we finally got to the point where we can release them comfortably to our customer base. And we'll kind of go through a little bit of them in a slide deck format. And a couple of these features, I really want to give a demo and kind of show you in the product how they're used. And we'll kind of work into a demo for new customers that have never seen the functionality of Automox. And within that demo, we'll kind of talk about these new functionalities. So as you can see here, we have GDPR Compliance. We have some Authenticator add-ons. They expand the software library, advanced patch policies, better WSS configuration control. And those are the kind of the new features we're introducing. Before we get started, I kind of want to talk about, what Automox's vision is, what we kind of stand for when we're talking about, this product and why we created it and why it kind of fits into your environment. So, at Automox, our goal is to help security professionals automate the fundamental basis of what we call security hygiene, which includes the consistent and repetitive execution of 4 key processes. And we consider those processes patching operating systems, patching third-party softwares, managing software deployments, and then managing device configurations. So these daily processes really form the foundation of a strong security framework, and also reduces the attack surface of your infrastructure by 80%. We release new features each month that support these goals, and today we're going to kind of talk about those features and how these features actually fit into the overall fundamental strategy of security hygiene. Okay, so really quickly, GDPR compliance. This one is really a no-brainer for us. Part of our strategy is security hygiene. So GDPR compliance, making sure we're protecting end-user security is a big deal for us. So we made a big effort to make sure that we became GDPR compliant, and that is part of the overall strategy here at Automox, and one of the big reasons we did it. So like I said, it's a no-brainer for us to make sure that we have this GDPR compliance. We've done things like introduce full user and account deletion on demand, and we also introduced account updates and revisions, and you can also delete accounts out of the Automox dashboard. So this functionality is now available within the product, so you have better account creation, deletion, and just have better control over the accounts and users within the Automox dashboard. So authentication, we do have two-factor authentication. Previously, we only supported via email. Now we actually produce a QR code within the Automox dashboard that allows you to do your authentication any way you want. We use things like Google Authenticator and Authy, but you can use whatever type of authenticator you want. Just use the QR code that we provide, and you can use whatever. If you use Duo or any of the authenticators, we will support. And this is part of that overall strategy, again, for that security hygiene, is we want to make sure that the users are logging into the Automox dashboard are the actual users. So we just make sure that we introduce this to give you more elasticity when it comes to using an authenticator or using it via email. Part of the strategy and part of protecting your environment is obviously expanding the third-party software library. We support a number of third-party softwares today, as you can see here on the right. And this month, we just introduced 3 new third-party softwares: SeaMonkey, Thunderbird, and then Office 365. So those are into the product today. We're supporting them today. And this list is ever growing. We have a very nimble and very intelligent engineering team that has, can release things very quickly. We do a release a week. Those could be fixes. Those could be features. Those could be added third-party software support. Each week we have a cadence of releasing new products and new features. So that's hands off to our engineering team to be able to do this. But again, just kind of expanding that third-party software library to make sure that you're protecting more of your infrastructure and we can manage more of your infrastructure. Okay. So before I get going, the next part I'm going to kind of go into is a demo. And before I do that, I kind of want to get a poll. And this is just kind of, we do these to kind of figure out for you guys, since you can't see each other on the webinar, just kind of give you an idea of the audience that's attending this and how you kind of compare to that audience. So what I want you to do is just kind of, talk about how many endpoints do you manage currently today within your infrastructure. And go ahead and start filling this out. Just kind of click it. And this is the only question we're going to ask. And, as questions or as answers start coming in, I'll kind of let you guys see, where you kind of size up in terms of who's actually, attending this webinar and how you kind of compare to them. Okay. So as you can see, we have some coming in live here. Okay, looks good. We have so it looks like the majority right now is around 51 to 200 endpoints, 201 to 501. So that 50 to 500 range looks like the majority of the people. We also have some bigger guys, so it's 1,000 to 5,000 endpoints. So you can see that we have a very diverse group of people attending in terms of how many endpoints that their infrastructure manages today. And that's great for Automox. We're very highly scalable. We serve 5 endpoints up to tens of thousands of endpoints. So again, this is a very highly scalable cloud-based product that manages multiple endpoints. Okay, and I think we've got all the responses. Looks like 13 for 51 to 200 and 200, and then 201 to 500. We have 9. So kind of where we're sizing up right now in terms of the audience. Okay, so let's move on. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do now, we spend the majority of the time doing this, is this a demo. And within this demo, we're going to talk about 2 of the new features we've introduced. And this is advanced patch policy, and then also better WSS configuration control within the product. So what I'm going to do is, for the new people that have never seen the product, I'm going to kind of show you, one of the powerful tools we have within the product that allows us to create groups of devices and then actually manage those devices with policies we can create. And we'll kind of go and show you how to create policies. And within this, we're going to kind of work in how advanced patch policies work and also how we do WSS configurations as well. All right, so just give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so everyone should see my screen now. So for those who have never seen this, this is the Automox web user interface. Everything that can be done here pretty much can be done via API as well. So if you want to automate any of this, you're welcome to do that. But this is the dashboard, and where I'm really going to kind of dive into is the system management section. So system management section is where you're actually going to do all of your configurations for your endpoints in terms of managing with policies and creating groups. So as you can see here, I have groups on the right and have policies here on the left. You can see it's very easy to look at, very easy on the eyes. You can see very clearly here are my groups of devices, and also here are my actual policies that are mapping to my devices. And I'll kind of show you how the mapping works here in a second. But this is kind of how it's broken off. So what I'm going to do first is kind of create a group. So that's what you're going to want to do off the bat. We have default groups that you'll see once you log in. You'll also have a default policy as well. But you can also create as many groups as you want. As you can see here, we have a group here, and it's mapping to certain policies. And then we also have child groups, which are mapped to, that are individually mapped to the policies as well, that are referenced under a parent group. So pre-patch test devices, marketing, sales, and finance is a child group within that. What we're going to do now is to kind of create one of these groups. within there, you're going to kind of see some of the functionality we're talking about. So all you do is click Create Group on the top right. That's going to take you to a Create Group page. You can name the group. You can set the scan interval. So the scan interval is how often we're going to go out and actually scan a device to see what kind of updates are available for us, depending on the software list that we pulled. Once we have that software inventory, we can pull it and actually load it into Automox. And you can see the different types of software that you have within the group, and then also the patches that are pending or updates that are pending within those pieces of software. It gets as granular as 1 hour and up to 24 hours. When we scroll down here, we can see different OS patch managements. So if you want to, and these OS patch management options, one of them is to enable or disable automatic updates. So if you want Automox to be able to manage your patching, you want the endpoint to be able to pull this patch repository, but allow us to actually control when patches are applied. So the thing you need to do is make sure that you disable OS automatic updates. That way we can choose when the patches are actually going to be applied to the endpoint. So Windows Update Source, this is one of the new features we introduced. This is better WSS configuration control. So this allows you, from the actual console across all of your endpoints, be able to select whether you're using a Windows Update or using a WSS control. If you choose WSS and you're using in your infrastructure using a WSS server, all you do is select it here, and then you can actually put the WSS server address here on the right. Once that's input, then the endpoints are all configured with that WSS server address, and we can start actually patching endpoints using that WSS control. So this allows you to not have to go through all of your endpoints to configure WSS server individually. You can just do it across your entire infrastructure. Using Automox, you don't have to use GPO or anything like that. You can just use Automox and it'll automatically configure it. So this is a great feature. It was a needed feature that we needed to add, and it's available today. So if I choose WSS, I can put in the server address here. This will be the server address of the WSS server, or you can choose Windows Update as well. All right, after that's all said and done, you can go ahead and create the group. There, and as you can see, that the demo group that I just created is here. Now, once a demo group is created, or once a new group is created, you're not going to have any associated policies with it at the time. So one of the things you got to make sure that you do is associate with policies. And as you can see, if I click on what I just created, I have no policies assigned to it currently. But it's very easy to assign all of these policies or group these policies dynamically. So maybe I want to make sure that my dev test policy is assigned to this group. All I have to do is click here, and it maps to that policy. Maybe I want to make sure that I have this, but I also want to make sure that I have an all policy that's assigned to the demo group as well. All I'll do is click the all policy, and it assigns that as well. I can click as many groups or many policies as I want to a group. We have no hard limit. If you want 1 or 1,000 different policies on a group, that's okay. After I've chosen all my policies, I just hit Save Changes, and there. The demo group is now mapped to 4 different policies, and you can easily see which ones are assigned and unassigned. I can quickly make changes here as well on the fly, and now that test group is assigned to a different policy. So you can see it's very easy to assign and manage all of your infrastructure from this one pane of glass. Okay, so let's talk about creating policies and the different types of policies available from the product. So once I have my group created, the next thing I want to do is create a policy. So I'll click on Create Policy at the top left. This will bring up a list of different types of policies that you can create within the product. We have 3 different general categories today. We have patch policies. These are just general patching policies. These are the policies that are going to make sure to control patchings across softwares that have been identified within the endpoint. We have different categories here, such as patch all except, or patch only. This means we can include or exclude different patches. Manual approve policies. So this is a policy where you need some sort of Automox administrator to approve a patch before it actually applies to an endpoint. This is good for things like servers that maybe require a maintenance window. You need to make sure that you manually approve it before it actually goes out. By severity. Automox has the intelligence to pull in the CVE scores for different patches and then group those together within a low, medium, or high, or critical severity level. So if you want to make sure that only the endpoint is being patched with critical patches, or maybe just medium and critical patches, you can choose and filter by severity. The last one here is advanced patch policies. And this is a new policy that we just introduced to the product. This really gives you the ability to customize the different types of criteria you want within your policy. So let's go ahead and create a policy, and we're going to use the advanced patch policy to kind of show you the functionality that we've introduced this month. So all policies have the same basic format. You need to name it, you can add notes, you can either turn it off or on, or you can choose automatic reboots as well. So the first thing you need to do is name it. Okay. Once it's named, you need to make sure that the policy status is turned from off to on. We give you the ability to toggle between policies from an off to on status in case you want to, maybe your environment's in a freeze and you don't want to run the policy for a couple of weeks. We give you the ability to turn it off, but not actually lose all the configurations that you have. After that's on, you can choose the ability to have automatic reboots. Then we can talk about the policy scope. So this is where you're actually going to be selecting conditions that you want within your patching policy. These conditions can be customized in formats such as greater than or less than or is not. And really you can customize and add as many fields as you want to make sure that you're getting just the patches you want to your endpoints. So let's go through a demo here. So let's say I want to make sure that I'm just doing the Windows patches. I just want to make sure that I know all these endpoints are Windows, and I want to make sure that I'm just doing Windows patches. So type Windows only is, and then you can choose which type. So security updates, feature updates, kits, definitions, criticality, applications. Okay, so let's just choose updates. After you choose that, you can preview package that would be patched, right? So right now it doesn't find any because we've chosen incorrect. So we give you the ability to say, hey, there's no patches found within the current Automox environment, so this would not be viable. So we give you alert to saying, hey, there's no patches here. However, if you try to run the patch policy with this alert, it's going to go ahead and run the policy, but it's not really going to patch anything. So you got to choose criteria that's good. So let's go here, and let's do patch OS. And let's do is, and let's just choose one of the OSs. So let's say Windows. Now let's preview it. Okay, now we have some patches that are actually showing up. So these are all the patches that are Microsoft related that would have been found within the environment. Okay, so maybe I just want to make sure that I want certain patches in this list, and maybe I don't care about the low or other severities. Maybe I just want medium and critical. Well, I can add another condition that says patch severity is greater than or equal to medium. Now let's look. Okay, so the list has gotten a little bit smaller here. Now we have only critical and medium severity patches that are populating within the Automox console. Okay, so maybe I say, okay, this list is good, but I really don't care about this one. This security update is not something I want. So all I do is copy the KDL. Okay, add another condition as display name, and then says contains, and then we just paste the KB in there. All right, let's preview that. Okay, so now we see that only this one is going to be populated, and only this one is going to be patched at this point in time. So at this point, we say, okay, we've narrowed it down to this is KB, so now this patch policy is only going to display this KB. So as you can see, it's very powerful in terms of how you can get very granular on and select specific patches that you want applied to a specific endpoint. And this is a really great feature. We've already been using it in the field. We've seen great outcomes. We've seen really good custom policies. You can get very creative with it, add as many conditions as you will, and it will go ahead and filter all those out. Make sure you always preview the patch, though, to ensure that they're actually finding patches that you want to apply. Okay, so scheduling is pretty easy. You need to select the month, week, and days that you want this patch policy iteration to run. So let's say I wanted to make sure that this patch runs every month. And I also want it to run every week. And let's say I wanted to run Wednesdays. So Wednesdays are the best time for me to patch my OSs across all my entire infrastructure for this particular policy. So let's select Wednesday. Now you can see that the scheduled preview has populated with the days that this policy is going to run. The green is today, the 27th and the 4th are the next time this policy is going to run. Okay? Then you can choose the patch window timing. Note that all of the timings that you put within this policy are going to be local time to the device. So you could have 3 devices at 3 different time zones. We're going to patch them at 3 different times, the time frames that are within the local time. So just know it is local time to the device. Mispatch window. So let's say you have a user that shuts down their laptop and leaves for 2 weeks right before these iterations run of the policy. Well, the next time they actually log into the system and get an internet connection and check into the Automox server, we're going to go ahead and apply those policies that they missed. So it's a good way to make sure that even though customers or your customers or users are shutting down their laptops, the next time they ever log in and get an internet connection, we're going to go ahead and force them to run those policies. Patch notifications. This is if you up here, remember we chose automatic reboots. Devices will restart after patching. This will send in-user notifications to the user to let them know that we are about to reboot their system if an actual patch requires that an endpoint reboots to apply. It'll give them an alert in their desktop. They can defer up to 3 times. After that third deferral, though, we're going to go ahead and apply those patches. Now, you have the ability to turn this on and off. So if you just wanted to reboot as soon as those policies run, we can do that. Or if you want those end users to give us some time and leeway, we can go ahead and choose those patch notifications as well. Okay, so we got our conditions picked within our policy scope. We have our policy on. We got reboots ready to go. We've got it named. We got the schedule set, so the policy is ready to save. Okay, so right now we've created it, and it's part of this list at this point in time. We see the advanced AX policy. It's not assigned to any group, but we can do that very easily. So if we just click the demo group we created, we can assign now our advanced Automox policy here, and then save the changes. The great thing about this as well is if you select the policy, you can execute the policy at any point in time. You do not have to wait for the scheduled iteration to come around. It will go ahead and apply that policy and go ahead and run everything that needs to go against that entire group. The good thing about the devices is you can actually even go into the devices level and run certain patches, apply certain patches one-off, or just run a policy one-off on that actual device. Okay, so that is about it for the demo, and that's really all we wanted to show you today. We wanted to make sure that you understood the new features that are coming out. We wanted to make sure that we gave a demo for the new stuff, and for the new people, we really wanted to show you how we do grouping and actually how we create policies that are identified with those groups, and how all the Automox, how easy it is to configure, manage your endpoints from one pane of glass. And this is all done Windows, Mac, and Linux from this single pane. Okay. So let me bring this back up.
Thank you so much, Adam. So we've reserved about 5 or 10 minutes here for questions. We have lots of them. So we're going to jump into the Q&A. And again, if you have a question for Adam, you can post it in the chat box in the lower left corner of the Ready Talk screen, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have a question from Matthew that he asks, can I run Automox on my cloud machines, Linux and Amazon and Google Cloud?
Yes, absolutely. So we run on both of those, and if your endpoints you have VMs that are configured with that, as long as it's running the OSs that we support, we can manage that for you.
And we have a question from Miriam, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Miriam's question is, does the WSUS setting only apply if we have a WSUS on-prem?
So good question. So as long as the endpoint can talk to the WSUS server, and you can put that WSUS server into URL into our Automox console, then we can manage it. So yes, as long as the WSUS server can talk to the WSUS server, we can work. So for Windows, we talk to the Windows Update Agent. The Windows Update Agent is what's configured with either Windows Update Server or the WSUS server. So as long as that configuration is on the endpoint is correct, we will be able to manage it from Automox. What we do is we allow you to put in that WSUS URL into our dashboard, and then we push that to all the endpoints as Windows Update Agent. So it configures it automatically for you, so you don't have to go through GPO, you don't have to go through each endpoint and configure it. We can all do it from a single pane of glass.
And we have 2 questions from Ashish. So the first question is, are the changes, example, policy creation, assignment, etc., logged anywhere?
So we don't log that for customers today. We are introducing better logging and better
better visibility into the commands that are being ran. If you're doing policies, you're assigning policies, if a policy fails, why it failed, just to kind of give you better looks and better tools to see what's going on with your infrastructure. Today, the mapping of policies and groups together, we do not log with that where customers can view it.
And what distros of Linux do we support?
So there is a list, and that is available at docs.automox.com. But just kind of high level from the distro standpoint, we, all of the major distros for Linux we support today. So CentOS, SUSE, Debian, and Red Hat, Ubuntu, we support all those. We support both, desktop versions. We support server versions, so we can manage servers and desktops for Linux.
Okay, and another question was, can you say again where customers and prospects can find that list?
Yes, it's at, if you go to docs.automox.com, you'll be able to find all the information about what types of distros and what types of Windows and Mac or Windows versions that we support as well.
Excellent. Scott has a question. What order do policies apply based on restrictions?
Correct. So we don't have any, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're wondering if there's restrictions in terms of policies. We don't really restrict. So if you assign the policy, if they maybe conflict within your environment, you need to make sure that you're aware of that. But we don't really, disseminate what policies are assigned where. We just allow you to assign as many policies as you want to a group of endpoints.
Great. We have a question from Josh. I'm reading this up. Is there a way to create a required software policy with multiple softwares? For example, I get a new laptop for a user, I install Automox, I assign one required software policy that will install all 10 of the company's required software, parentheses, rather than having to assign 10 individual software policies.
So correct, good question, and we'll make sure that I get clarification on this for you and get that question back. But from the way I understand it is, you can load as many installation files as you want to an actual required software policy and deploy other softwares from that single policy. Awesome. Now, if that's functionality that I understand today, and I've used it that way, but if not, you would have to actually assign 10 different policies for those.
And we're going to get to a couple more questions here, but just for folks who might have a question later, where, Adam, how can they best reach support outside of this webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you just email us at support@automox.com, we'll make sure that's all you have to do, and we'll make sure to get back to you with any questions, troubleshooting, any of those things. And I'm part of that organization, and I have a team here that kind of manages that. We pride ourselves on quick responsiveness. So just make sure any questions or any of the stuff that you have as you go through trials, as you're trying to set up certain things, if you have questions about how scripts run, just make sure you submit a ticket to support@automox.com, and we'll get back to you.
Okay, we have a question from Scott. What kind of deployment options are there? For example, if I deploy to 200 workstations, can I specify things like groups within the installer, or would I have to manually assign them to groups within the Automox web interface?
Correct. So, in terms of like how if they're segmented into groups within like a Windows environment, like in the registry, we don't really talk to the registry in terms of that. So you would have to actually do it within the Automox console, assign it to a group.
Okay. And we're at our 30 minutes, but we have lots of folks still on the line and lots of additional questions. So we're just going to keep going so that we can get all these questions answered. So we have another question from Ashish. For custom applications, where is the repository specified for the endpoint to retrieve the bits? Exactly. So for custom applications that we don't support today, that you're going to be deploying into your environment, whatever the vendor provides as their actual repository, that would be you would put that within the installation syntax of the required software policy. A lot of those are cloud-based, so you can just pull it off the internet as part of the installation. So for things like MSI files, we can identify what the actual syntax is for the installation command, but for custom applications, you may need to get that from the vendor if it's like a .exe file or something like that. Okay. And we have a question from Victor, which isn't specifically about this demo, but I suspect there are lots of other people who would want to know. He wanted to know, is there an option to stop updates or patches that are currently running on a device due to a policy being pushed? Right. So if the policy is already being ran, there's no way to actually stop that policy. It's going to keep running.
So there's no way to just stop within the middle of installation.
Okay. And Michael asks, do we have to create a new advanced policy for OS upgrade?
So if you do an advanced policy, that's good because you can specify the actual OS that you want updated, but you don't have to actually specify to get all OS patches updates. You can group OSs together, and then it would only update, if in that group maybe a Windows or a Linux, we would only update the patches within that we found within that software repository, which would be Windows. So you could do a patch all policy and put all Windows devices within a group, and we're only going to patch Windows devices there.
Okay. So we actually have a couple of people asking the same question, which is when is the new advanced patch policy beta features going live? Because they don't see it in their console, and they're wondering how they can get their hands on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this just got released in beta this week. So we usually beta it for a couple of weeks just to make sure that any kinks or anything that's going on are obviously just through the whole beta process. Again, that's just something that you want to use now. Make sure to submit a ticket to support@automox.com, and we'll make sure to turn that feature on for you at any point in time.
Great. Okay, we have another question from Scott. What kinds of conditions are available in the software deployment piece? For example, if Adobe Professional exists, do not install Adobe Reader.
Absolutely. So we do have the ability in a custom policy to run evaluation code across endpoints and then remediate as needed. So if this is a condition that you can set up within a script, we can do it. So the evaluation in this situation would be if this piece of software is installed, don't install this piece of software. And if any of the endpoints do not meet that condition, it would remediate and make sure that that piece of software is not installed. And if it is, uninstalled. So you can kind of get really creative. Now that's a kind of a conditional one where if something happens, then make sure, if this is installed, then make sure this is not installed. You would need to make sure you customize that within your script.
Okay, we also have several people asking how they can access our API documentation. Where can they find our API docs?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to docs.automox.com, so that's docs.automox.com/API, that is our API documentation page. It shows you all the methods. So we have some get, put, and post methods in there. Within there, you can put in an API key that's available within your organization. If you go to the Settings or Users tab, it's the Settings tab actually. It'll give you an API key, and I'll show you that's that right now. Just clicking on Settings and going down to my profile, might be under Organization. Yep, and you'll use this API key. If you take that to the website, you can actually run the APIs from that docs.automox.com/API and actually see it, come back with all the parameters within JSON format.
Okay, another question from Zachary. When will Office 365 Pro Plus channels be supported?
So those, we did do some feature works on that. We do support more channels today. So, maybe take that offline and actually submit me a support ticket so I can see exactly what they're trying to do. We do support more of the channels at this point in time, so we should be able to update more accurately and not have such patch discrepancies between Office 365. And also, Office 365, we do support as a third-party software. That was one of the new releases. So if you have Office 365, we will manage that within Automox.
Awesome. And Mike asks, does it try to reboot servers when you manually execute a policy?
So if you manually execute a policy, it's going to run through the policy iteration as normal, just after the policy were to run. So if you have that policy set to automatic reboots and don't have end-user patch notifications selected, it's going to go ahead and reboot those systems as soon as the policy is ran. Now, if the policy has automatic reboots selected, and you do have end-user notifications, it's going to go ahead and send those end-user notifications out before it actually reboots. So just think of it, if you execute the policy manually, it's just going to execute the policy as normal.
Okay. Question from CI Help Desk. We've been trying to look at managing our one-off software. Is there a way to have devices belong to more than one group?
There's not. And that was a decision we made within Automox in terms of manageability and functional. Kind of a thing. We just made the decision to say only one device per group. So it's a one-to-one relationship when it comes to groups and devices.
All right, we have, we're working through these questions. This is great. So we have another question from Miriam.
Yep.
If my endpoint has not come online in a while and is due to get updated, will Automox prioritize the update traffic before everything else?
Okay, so let me just read this question one more time. If an endpoint has not come online in a while and is due to be updated, will the Automox prioritize the updates traffic before everything else? So no, we will not. Now, if the device has been offline for a long time and then comes up, more than likely it's probably going to come up during when a policy is not running, unless you're running policies pretty often. So you'd probably be the only one that's actually getting updated due to the mispatch window functionality. So we don't have a way to say, hey, this endpoint actually doesn't get prioritization over this one because that's been patched in a while. But we don't have a way to actually say it's getting the majority of the traffic or bandwidth. I do see another question here. Let me scroll up really fast. It was a good question. It was talking about feature updates. We're supporting feature updates like 1709, 1803. That is one of the new things we just started supporting this week or late last week. So we do support feature updates. So if you're doing like a High Sierra update or something like a spring or fall creator, we will actually manage that for you, and that's a new feature we introduced. Okay. So is there Active Directory LDAP integration, both standalone and cloud-based? So we have implementation into some a directory as a server type application called Jump Cloud. We do implement with that. We don't really talk to the any of the registry or the Windows registry or anything like that. We try to make sure we're hands off with that because we don't want to get too much of the security risks that the endpoint could pose if we actually are talking to the registry, so we don't talk to that too much. We try to be hands off, so we don't really support that, and we don't have our own LDAP functionality, but we do kind of, we use other things that actually can do that for us, like Jump Cloud.
Okay. Another question from Andy here. Is there a report that gives detail to devices that need attention?
Yes, we do have a pretty good canned reports. So this is, if you look here on my screen, I have a non-compliant devices report, and this is on the group level. So you could make sure that the group of devices that you're worried about in terms of being compliant or not, it would filter them by that group and show, hey, these devices are not compliant right now, and these are the ones that need to be updating. Additionally, we have pre-patch reports, which this is when this is kind of a report that shows you what patches are pending and which ones are going to update the next policy iteration, so you kind of get an idea of what is going to be taken care of when your policies actually run or not.
We've got a question from Ryan, and actually we've had several people ask this. Is SAML authentication or federated IDs on the roadmap?
Yeah, and absolutely it is on the roadmap. It is scheduled to be released second half of this year, and it's one of our highest priorities on the roadmap. And we get a lot of requests for it, so that will be part of the product this year.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna try to tackle a couple more questions here. We just got a lot of them. So Scott asks, in MSP mode, is it possible to create a policy that applies to multiple companies below the master without having to create the policy across each company?
Yeah, good question. And today we do not do that. So it's one-off. So each organization has, you would have to create the policies for that organization within the organizational dashboard. We are introducing some new functionality around MSPs. We'll have an MSP dashboard that will give you a lot more functionality. I'm not quite sure if that piece, the global policy, will be part of that. I have a feeling it will be, but we are still kind of molding that. But it'll just know that this MSP dashboard will allow you to kind of give you better granular control and better functionality when creating multiple organizations for your users.
Okay. We have a question from Matt, who says, am I able to enforce that devices have software as part of my company's acceptable use policy? For example, antivirus, anti-malware, et cetera.
Yeah, so let me just read that question again. Am I able to enforce that devices have software as part of my company's acceptable use policy? Absolutely. So this is a really good thing about the custom policy. And I've had a couple questions about this, and I didn't have much time in the demo, so I really didn't get into custom and required software policies. Required software policies is the policy you use to actually upload installation files and push those applications and softwares to your endpoints. Custom policies allow you to create custom scripts in order to evaluate a device and ensure it's meeting certain criteria, and if it's not, you would actually remediate that. So in your case, you wanted to make sure that some of your antivirus or malware software is on your device. You would run evaluation code here that would check against that. If it returned a value anything other than a 0, that means it's not compliant or not meeting that criteria, and the remediation code will then come and install that software for you to ensure that all of your software is installed across your entire infrastructure. So this is a really good way. We talked about early as one of our key things is ensuring that we are configuring. So managing devices configurations, this is how you do it. We ensure that certain configurations are met, and if they're not, we correct them. So you at any point in time, you know this policy is running, you know that you are within compliance in terms of software that should be installed on those endpoints.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions. I think we can get to them pretty quickly. So Kellen asks, is there a failure/success report, please?
Yes, so if you go to the activity logs, it'll give you an indication of if a patch or a policy was successful or not successful. We also send you emails if something goes wrong as well. So if a patch policy doesn't apply, we give you indications of why it didn't via an email, and we also indicate that it failed. We also send out emails that when policies are successfully ran, we'll send an email to anyone that is within that organization. We'll send an email saying it's successful. So we definitely support that.
Thanks everyone for joining.